the National Institute of Aquatic Resources and the Technical University of Denmark. And she will talk about boosting impact and citation, why talking to journalists might actually be a good idea. The floor is yours. 15 minutes.
Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be here to talk about something that's... First, I need an introduction to get into this. Is there help to be had? There you go. Thank you. I'll talk to you about something that I'm actually not at all an expert in, but something that has almost changed my life. I work as a communication officer doing press work with these fine people. My fellow researchers, I tell them, oh, we need to talk to journalists, talk about what we do. Society needs to know what we do. But my colleagues are busy people. Do I really make a difference? Is this what they should be doing with their time? Those were the questions I was asking myself. So I sat down one late winter afternoon and started looking through the research. And the good news is, yes, it makes a difference. And I have proof, and I want to share it with you. Out of curiosity, in this room, how many of us here in our work deal with either as press officers or maybe as scientists talking to the press or even as journalists? How many of you has this whole interaction between scientists and journalists as part of what you do in your work? Oh, that's quite a lot. Okay, good. I'm very happy because then you might find this interesting because I'm a little worried because this is a bit of a dull presentation. I'm presenting 8 heavy studies and I'm trying to do it really briefly, but we'll see how it goes. I think things are changing right now. I think academics more and more are seeing the need for communicating with society. A conference like this one, I think, is a good example of that. I found this old study, it's 10 years old, among UK scientists. And back then, the conclusion was that science communication was seen as altruistic and not a central part of academic life, and that it was not seen to bring in significant funding. I think a lot has changed in those last 10 years, and I'm curious to hear what you think about that. I found this study among environmental researchers who had contributed to an e-newsletter, and they were asked about how interacting with the press, what benefits or what feedback they had gotten from that. And the things they mentioned were stuff like they got contacted by other researchers, they had conference invites, and they were contacted by members of the public. They were also contacted by policy people. So of course, the media is out there. It's how it can be used as a platform to showcase the work that you do and to interact with society and other people. A lot of the big scientific journals have press offices pushing articles to the press. And those people, of course, also wonder if they make a difference. And a group of them in 2013, I think 12 it was, made a little study. They looked at articles that they did press releases for from these scientific journals and compared them to the citation rates of articles that did not have the PR. And to their joy, they found that yes, the articles that they boosted with PR got more attention. Now you guys are clever people, so I'm sure some of you now are thinking, yes, of course, but maybe the articles that they did the PR for just happened to be the more interesting articles, and that's why they had higher citations. I think that would be a very valid objection, and that's why I love this study so much. This was a study of articles in the New York Times talking about research from the New England Journal of Medicine And the beauty about this study is that here we do have a control period, because the New York Times went on strike for a period of 12 weeks in '78. It was not printed. The paper was still made. So we have the selection was made. Scientific articles from the medical journey were written about, but it was a secret. No one ever knew which articles were selected. So here we have the perfect case to test whether or not doing PR or writing, whether or not a scientific article being written about in the press makes a difference for citations. And citations, of course, is a really hardcore value for a researcher. It's what gets you a job. It's what gets you funding. You need to have good citation rates. And the really amazing, crazy thing is that it makes a huge difference. For 10 years after an article was written about in the New York Times, there is an increase in citations. And in the first year, that increase is 70%. I mean, this is the New York Times. It's not my local Danish newspapers, but still, it's amazing. And the effect is not there for the secret control articles, for the ones that were written about in the New York Times that was never printed. So for me, this proves that having journalists write about a scientific article makes a difference. Now, this is the New York Times, big fancy newspaper. What about other publications? Some people looked at a wider array of papers. They looked at 24 daily US papers and television. They looked at coverage, breaking news coverage of the day of publication of scientific articles, and they found the same effect. So it's not only the New York Times, it was the same effect for all these other daily American papers. However, they found that breaking news coverage on television did not make a difference at all. They speculate that it's because we don't remember what you watch on TV. Maybe it's true, I don't know if you remember what you watched last night. Or they speculate that it's because researchers don't watch television. I don't know how you feel about that. But now, this is the US. What about other language areas? I live in Denmark. Unfortunately, I have not been able to find any studies from Denmark. But this has been studied comparing the UK and Italy. They looked at articles from PNAS in 28 and 29 and the coverage in UK and Italian papers. And they found that if your publication in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences was written about in a UK newspaper, your citations increased by 63%. However, if it was written about in an Italian newspaper, you still had an increase, but it was only 16%. And I think this points to a bias that the scientific community, the language is English, so scientists around the world tend to read more English-speaking newspapers. However, this means that if you're an Italian artist, or Italian scientists, your local national audience can easily be reached through your national newspapers, because there is a huge increase in Italian citations after the Italian coverage. And for us, those of us that work with press relations, I think this is worth thinking about. In each case, think about, what am I trying to accomplish here? Who do I need to help my scientist reach in this particular case? Am I interested in the national audience, or am I aiming for a more international audience? So it's a consideration. Now you might be thinking, oh yeah, right, newspapers. Who cares about newspapers in this age of social media? And the first studies are actually beginning to tick in as well on how does social media affect this whole thing. This is a study of 241 highly cited US nanoscientists. And this study shows Also that scholars who had more interaction with reporters also had greater scientific impact. There's no control group in this study, so it's just a correlation. However, it also showed that if your research was also being discussed on Twitter, it further amplified the effect. It also, and then one thing, science blogging did not. It has no explanation for that. This is the final study that I'll mention. It's just out, thanks to Terry from ISIS for pointing my attention to it. This study looks at articles from ecology journals, published from 2012 to 14, and looked at the effects of Twitter activity. And if you, like me, are working with colleagues, some of them are on Twitter and some of them are thinking, no way, I'm never going there, this might be a good study to point them to. Because it found a strong positive relationship between Twitter activity and number of citations. And it also shows that even if you publish in a journal with a lower citation index or factor, you can still boost your own work. So it gives a lot of power back, in a way, to the researcher. However, it also showed that you can't boost your work. If you're not doing good work, don't think Twitter will save you. Because if you write about yourself all the time, that's not where the power of Twitter is. The power of Twitter is in the community. So what you do has to resonate with others, to go beyond your own little patting yourself on the shoulder. So it's, you still have to do solid science, but this is apparently a really effective channel for interacting with society. That's a lot of dry figures and numbers for you and very fast, but I just wanted to show you that this type of information is out there, and maybe you can use it to convince the people you're working with that they should spend time dealing with journalists, or maybe it can give you, if you're the press officer yourself, a sort of an extra sense of urgency that what you're doing makes a difference. And one final note, I think it also gives us a great responsibility, because what this actually means is that we are influencing the way scientists see science. We are actually, my phone is telling me my time's up. We have one scientist here communicating with another scientist through the media. So this means that the media and what we as communications professionals sell to the media is actually the science that's getting out there, and it's the sort of, it's not only the academic conferences, it's also us and the role that we take. So there's a bias in what the media deems newsworthy, and what we as communications people see as newsworthy is also influencing what other researchers hear about. I haven't figured out exactly what that means, but I think it's something to discuss over beer later today. So, thank you. Oh, final note, I'd forgotten this one. Not a lot of people actually using Twitter right now, so there's a whole playing ground to conquer for those that sort of get out there first. Thank you.